Hello, everyone. Chris from 6 Plus Plus here, and welcome to episode 3 of I Am the Hammer, the show in which I treat you all to my journey as I become a Grey Knight's main. Today's focus is all about teams. It's a very exciting episode. I can't wait to do it. Let's crack on. So, as I said, today's episode is all about teams. So, what sort of treats do I have in store for you? Well, first of all, I'm going to be talking about what to be thinking about when building a teams list, both from a general kind of point of view, but also Grey Knight specific, because obviously this is a Grey Knight video. I'm then going to update you all on how my practice games have been going. I've tried a couple of lists. I played into a few different matchups and I've had some really good learnings there. If you remember in the last episode, I spoke about my Luxembourg scrim list. 6 Plus Plus are playing against Luxembourg, and I got drawn into Sisters of Battle. So I'm going to fill you in on how that went. Show you my updated matrix. It's always changing. And finally, next weekend, we have got the international team tournament. And we came fourth last time, which we were pretty happy with. And so we're going to have another pop at doing well again. So I've been working hard on my list, and I'll share that with you at the very end. So, generally, when you are building a list for teams, you kind of want to go into these sorts of realms of thought. So, first of all, you need to know what your role is. You're either going to be some sort of defender. So, a defender is someone who has two choices. So, someone you go forward as a defender, the opposition give you two choices to choose from, and you get to choose the table. So like light or heavy terrain, that sort of thing. So do you want to be a defender, someone who's probably going to lose, but they've got to try and lose as like narrowly as possible? That's the general role. So you need to be kind of scoring well. Or are you going to be an attacker? That's someone who's designed to kind of just beat up and kill things and get those wins. So what role you have in the team is actually going to reflect on how you build your list, and we'll talk about that with Grey Knight shortly. The next thing you want to be thinking about is whether you want to skew or not skew. So by skew, I mean like horde or all vehicles, or all high toughness, like whatever. It's something where in a singles event, you're probably randomly going to come up against your hard counter. But a teams event, if there is one hard counter to your list, you can avoid it during the pairings process and then hopefully beat on everyone else. So that's something you need to be thinking about. And finally, it's about, I guess it links to the previous 2 points, but it's balancing kind of output versus scoring. So are you building a list which is just all about scoring, doesn't really want to interact with the opposition? Or are you building a list which is designed to kill the opposition and in certain matchups generate those big wins, which are so crucial? So when it comes to building a list for teams, those are the sorts of things you want to kind of be thinking about before you start building those lists. So I had to think about with Grey Knights, what sort of things would I be considering? What were my options with my international team tournament coming up? So these are the sorts of things I think Grey Knights can cater for or think about. If you've got more, definitely leave them in the comments. So first of all, vehicle skew. Obviously, there are lots of vehicle lists out there for Grey Knights at the moment. This list would probably involve somewhere between 4 and 6 Dread Knights. It would involve somewhere between 1 and 3 Land Raider Redeemers. Might involve Canis Rex. It's going out there to win big, just be really hard to kill because it's all vehicles. But it does depend on play style. I think this is really important, and I think as a Grey Knight player, it's actually we're in a really interesting position at the moment because although we don't actually have a huge amount of viable data sheets, the amount of different lists you can build with Grey Knights is really interesting. And I've really enjoyed building different lists. The vehicle skew, you've got to be thinking, well, this is an attacker list that's going to go out there, try and beat something up, get a big win. The player's going to have to be good at being aggressive. So it's not for everyone. It's what I tried at the singles event. from episode 2. I went for 5 vehicles. It wasn't for me. Okay, so you do have to try and practice it and see how it goes. But so you can definitely go vehicle skew. I think Grey Knights have a great opportunity to be going anti-infantry as well. You think how good Purifiers are, obviously, anti-infantry. You've got Purgation squads with Flamers. Dread Knights are pretty good anti-infantry. There's so much tech there for anti-infantry if you were trying to skew to be able to handle the Horde matchup. Obviously, 120 Orc Boys is a bit of an issue at the moment, so that's something that people might well think that Grey Knights have a shot into. I will address that later on in the episode. So yeah, there's lots of options there. Now, you could also go about teching for the Thousand Suns and Mirror matches. Thousand Suns are in a really good place at the moment. Grey Knights are in a good place. You're not. I wouldn't be surprised to face come up against them in teams. So you could think about trying to tech for those. The way you would do that is librarians in Terminator squads. They obviously give you the feel no pain against that sort of psychic damage. So if you were to build that way, that would be how you'd be teching. So you definitely want librarians in your list if you're trying to be preparing to take on the Thousand Suns. And this is why, when you're building this, you need to be talking to your team and saying, well, what do you want me to play into? Because it's really important that you realize that, you don't want to rock up at an event and but, oh yeah, you can go play Thousand Suns for 3 games when you haven't tech for it. But if you have with, I don't know, Calexis and all the librarians, then actually you're going to be in a good place for that. You can, of course, go down the MSU scoring route. That's a pretty standard one. Grey Knights obviously do that very well. MSU, lots of 5-man units, running around, scoring all the points. Get your Terminators there with OC 15. You got your Interceptors, you got Grey Knights sticking and scouting. Oh, there's so much good stuff. It's not going to be that killy because Grey Knights just aren't that killy, but you're going to score your secondary cards unbelievably well. And you can definitely build a list that consistently scores 35 to 40 on the cards, I would say. And yeah, just play your own game, really. I think that's probably quite a good way of going about maybe that kind of first defender role. And then finally, you can go down like the opposite, so the points denial. The way I would see this is with probably 3 big bricks of Terminators, led by characters, and then a couple of scoring units. No Dread Knights, so your opponent can't ever score bring it down as a card. Think about Purge the Foe, like your opponent's not going to be scoring very well on that. It's basically trying to lock down objectives, score your cards as and when you can, but really denying your opponent lots of primary, denying them the ability to score their cards particularly well. And I think there's real play in that. It's what Jack Harpster did at the last WTC. He took 3 bricks of 10, and he was able to draw with Broken Eldar at the time. So, I think that's definitely a route to go down. It's one I definitely want to give a go to because when I have played it, I did really enjoy it. The problem is it's right on the line. Like you make one mistake, game over. So it's definitely a high skill cap list, and you need lots of reps. So hopefully that helps. Like when you're thinking about building teams, I know I've obviously been like asking around in Discords and stuff, and a lot of it is, well, what's your role? And there is no right or wrong answer with Grey Knights, really. You could build a list with 3 Tech Marines and Brother Captain Stern, and hey, that's 4 amazing scoring pieces. Give first to the fray to one of your Tech Marines so you can deep strike down and score deploy in the opponent's deployment zone turn 1. And then you've lost a 100-point model, like who cares? You go anywhere from that to whoops all vehicles to whoops all Terminators and Paladins, like so many cool options. So I'd say definitely speak to your team, work out what sort of options they want, what you're supposed to be going into, what they need you to do, and then build accordingly. So I've been playing some practice matches, and I've just realised I spelled practice wrong. It should be a C. That's naughty me. I apologise. Right, so what have I been playing into? So I played into my coaching client, and I won 88-36 into Tyranids. Scores obviously not really relevant. It's more of a coaching game. It was supply drop though, and I got to go second. So these things happen. My view of the Tyranid game is that Tyranids, as usual, find it very hard to kill Grey Knights. So yeah, it was absolutely fine. The Purifiers just drop any sort of blobs. If you can get Dread Knights into Exocrines, that's really great. Just Weight of Fire drops things like Maliceptors. Feels like a good matchup. Now, so as I said, my Luxembourg game, I've been paired into Sisters. I've never played into Sisters before. So Ed, who's top Grey Knight player, got to Super Major last four. Him and I played into Jack Tight, who is one of top Sisters players, probably in the world, to be fair to him. And just to talk it through, and just I'd never played Sisters before, so I just wanted to work out how the matchup went. So we played my Luxembourg opponent's list. We played the supply drop mission, which is the one we're playing in our scrim. And after 2 turns, it felt okay. And then Jack covered the entire board with his models and just completely shut me down. And I think I made one mistake where I should have low knocked the purifiers. Also, I should have AOC'd the purifiers if I didn't. Instead, I gave them +1 to hit when they dropped down, and they wiped Arcoflagellants anyway. And that was that was pretty brutal. The problem in this game was no primary. Jack did a very good job of denying me primary. I scored 0 on primary, so that is why I lost 76-32. But hey, I learned what Sisters do. But we'll come back to how the actual match went shortly. And that was using my Luxembourg list. Both of those were. Then I played into Tom, my teammate's Chaos Space Marines, which he's using 4 teams. He was just working out if he wanted to use it. He went like all the DACA, so it's a really shooty CSM list. Whew, that was a brutal game. Tom's a very good player. And Vindicators, my word. Vindicators certainly do some work. A Vindicator one-shot a Dread Knight in Overwatch. That's how that went. In this list, I only played 1 Dread Knight and I had no Terminators. I had 3 Purgation units, 2 Interceptor units, 2 Strike units, and then the 10-man Paladin Brick with a Grandmaster, and 1 Dread Knight, as I said, and the 10 Purifiers, obviously. Yeah. Obviously, I think this plays the matchup better than if I was playing 5 Dread Knights. I did miss the second Dread Knight, though, I must admit. So this was my one run out with that style of list. I really missed that second Dread Knight, so I've since gone away from that build. I think it is a really good build, though. Purgation Squad's definitely being slept on by a few people, I think. They're really tasty, especially with the Flamers. But yeah, that matchup, whatever CSM see, they just kill, so you have to play accordingly. But I managed to eke out the win because I had bottom of turn, basically. Right, now, 120 Orc Boys, one of our other players for the team, is taking that to this team event. He'd never played it before. So we all sat down as a group. I played into Lee, who's taken it, Lee, and also Paul from our team, and again, Jack Type, who also loves Orcs. And Jack kind of showed Lee the ropes and how to play it. Now, we're only on battle round 2. We've only finished 2 whole turns so far. And I'm currently 40 points to 25 up. That's pretty good into what is probably one of the most oppressive lists out there at the moment. The main problem is that, so it's Purge the Foe, I should add. That's why the game's going well, it's Purge the Foe. And I went first. I was able to get some primary. And the problem is, at the end of turn 2, I have my 10 Paladins left. I have 10 Purifiers left. I have 5 Purgation Marines left. I have 1 Interceptor wrapped. I have 1 Strike wrapped. I have 1 Strike wrapped. I have 1 Terminator wrapped. And that is it. So I've got to play 3 turns with essentially 3 units. So I think I've had a quick thought, and I think I can probably score another 20 points. So I reckon I'm going to finish on about 60. Lee will undoubtedly beat me on that. I don't think I got it quite right. I shouldn't have given him access to so many units. I definitely used the Dread Knights wrong. But yeah, so what I've learned is a Purify unit can drop a 20 man as long as they don't have the Feel No Pain. On my turn 2, I had an 8-inch charge, which I failed with the Paladins. If I make that charge, I kill 2 bricks on my turn 2 rather than 1. I've locked down an objective with my Paladins. My Terminators are therefore safe as opposed to being charged by a brick and dying. And I'm probably in a really good place in that game. So I think playing into 120 boys, if you're playing on a mission like Purge the Foe, I think Grey Knights have game into it. I think in most other missions, you're probably just going to get out primaried, but because I can only hold one objective and do okay in that, and you can try and do your best, kill the little extra bits for your kill mores, I think we're okay. But yeah, the other matches, the other primary missions might be really tricky. Something like, so all the others might be quite a bit more brutal. So I have had one other game, which is, of course, my Luxembourg scrim. Very exciting, getting to play against WTC player from Luxembourg. Played against Sebastian, who went last year and played Deathwatch for the team. This year he's on Sisters. He's a very good player. So how did it go? Well, it was, of course, WTC terrain mission supply drop. For those who don't know, supply drop's the one with the disappearing objectives. It can be really brutal, really brutal. So on primary, so that was you always want to go second on that one, and it's Hammer and Anvil. His list was reasonably standard: 20 Arcoflagellants, 20 Repentia and 2 Rhinos, 3 War Suits with Val, a load of Seraphim and Zephyrim, 2 Castigators, which don't do much into me because I'm only -1. A Battle Sisters squad with various spells and whistles, Penitent Engine, Celestine's in there as well. So going into this matchup, obviously I'd experienced it with Jack, and what I'd learned was that Val's unit can dominate the game. If you get Val's unit in a good place, it's just going to dominate the game. The Repentia can also cause a lot of damage. Based on my practice game, Arcoflagellants didn't really do anything. Jack didn't seem to think they did much. Let me tell you, they do still do stuff, even at AP0. So going in, I didn't want to get 19-1 like I did last time against Jack, but I felt I could give it. I think it was quite drawish. That's what I felt. So how did it play out? Well, firstly, I got second turn. That's great for Grey Knights, amazing for the mission. So I'm like, right, I need to keep them down low on primary as long as possible and then just score my cards. And that kind of, it worked out nicely early doors. Managed to get 5 turn 1, or turn 2, deny him. I was really aggressive with the Dread Knight and stuck it in his deployment zone. He wasn't able to kill it. So yeah, it was the game was going okay, but he'd loaded the right-hand side where the final objective was going to be with Val and Repentia and Arcoflagellants and that sort of thing. And I was kind of picking up the other flank. But then there was a moment where I failed to kill Penitent Engine on the middle objective, so that gave him 8 primary. Then Penitent Engine went in on its own into Purifiers and killed 7 of them. He killed 3 with Tank Shock and then killed 4 in combat. That was quite big. Losing that unit. And as we came to turn kind of like 3-4, it was super, super close. And then he made a mistake. And then he went really aggressive with 10 Repentia and tried to set off a bunch of 9-inch charges into my Paladins. So he was like, I don't need to miss. So my Paladins who kept picking on the flank and trying to get rid of those Paragon War Suits because I'd learned how brutal they were. And he sent the Repentia 9 inches away, Morgan Val 9 inches away. and the Seraphim went over to the middle so they could fire and fade onto the middle objective for Eridanel. And then he shot at my Paladins, who of course have Sigil. And this is an interesting one, right? Because I always just go, don't forget they've got Sigil. And he goes, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And we took it back, and he didn't shoot the Paladins. He charged the Repentia in. They killed like 2 Paladins, and then all the Paladins killed all the Repentia. This was big because it just wiped away one of his defenses on that final objective, and it stopped Eridanel. I asked him afterwards, like, at WTC, would players say, "Oh, it's fine. Don't watch. Don't shoot this unit. Remember, I have got sigil." Or would they have gone, "Oh, you shot me. Cool. I'm sigilling to the middle." So I could have sigiled to the middle, and that would have got me 8 points on primary. And he was like, "Well, you told me before the game. You reminded me on turn 2 or turn 3. You'd have been well within your right to sigil." So I think it's interesting. Drop in the comments. How do you go about managing sigil? Do you always remind your opponent? What do you do? I'm not sure. Anyway, I didn't get those 8 points, unfortunately. Anyway, the game came down to essentially me needing a 9-inch charge with Terminators. He had 10 Arcoflagellants, Celestine, and 6 Seraphim on that final objective. I was able to 3-inch deep strike my 2 Purifiers and Crow 3 inches away from Dialogus, which was on the objective as well, for Assassinate and Overwhelming Force at the same time. That was quite a chef kiss moment. The strikes moved up to charge onto the objective, but they weren't going to do enough on their own. I had to go for a 9-inch charge with the Terminators, who he'd move blocked when they were trying to sneak around back, so I had to pick them up and go for the 9. And I made the 9. So what that meant was the game went from being a 50-49 win to him, which would have been a 10-10, to me grabbing a 64-50 win. So I got a 12-8. So that was really cool to be a WTC player. He was a good player, made a couple of small mistakes. I think this is quite an interesting one. I definitely experienced imposter syndrome in this game. I'm constantly second guessing myself. I just felt like I was being outplayed, even though it wasn't necessarily. I think I actually played the game reasonably well. I don't think I got the Dread Knights right. He loaded up the correct side more than I did. Me having bottom turn was the main decider, really. If I don't, then the game goes quite differently because he just sits and waits for that 15 at the end. But yeah, really fun game. So yeah, sisters matchup. People say the Arcoflagellants don't do anything. My thing is though, right? Well, yeah, but I had to make 36 saves on my Dread Knight with them. Like that does, as it was, I only failed 2, so therefore they didn't die. It didn't die, but it was on like 6 wounds at the time, so I should have died. So Arcoflagellants still do work, but Purifiers pick up a unit of Arcoflagellants. Little fact for you. But yeah, I think it's a reasonably drawish matchup based on equal player skill. So speaking of matchups, I have updated my CSM1 to manufacture my list. Okay, I think with my list now, with less vehicles, I think it's a bit better. So I'm going to say drawish. What have I added in? I've added in Tyranids. That just feels a positive matchup. Grey Knights can't get big blowout wins in general, I don't think, or they struggle to. So I've put it as a low end of the win bracket. Sisters feels drawish, but I think probably slightly favours Grey Knights. Orcs is going to massively depend on your build, their build. I think there's game there just because you're good at cards. You do have the potential for good OC. So I think it's a good matchup by any means. If you tech for it, maybe it's okay. I'm honestly not sure. I don't really want to tech just for orcs because the problem is there's Bully Boys, there's Dread Mob, and there's Green Tide, and they're all very different, right? So you can't just generically tech for orcs, which is why they're going to be so strong, I think. So yeah, there's a little update on my matrix for you. Right, and finally, international team tournament. We want to do well. How did I approach it? I kind of wanted to build myself as more of a first defender role. That was my goal. I have tried Whoops most vehicles with 5. It's not for me. It's not my style. So I've gone away from that. And it's very, very similar to my Luxembourg scrim list. And just to clarify, at no point do I think this is the best Grey Knight list that I could take. I think it's just one that I enjoy playing. I think one that fits my style. I've had a few reps with now, and it feels good. So, what have I gone for? So, I've gone for a Brother Captain, Psy Cannon with Sigil. Brother Captain over Grandmaster for me. How much -1 damage, half damage, -1 to hit out, -1 to wound out there is there? Not a huge amount. Yeah, I mean, I guess AOC, ignoring that with the Grandmaster would be something, but I just like the sustained. I just like having that output on the side cannons, the 18 side cannon shots. It should be 18 hits with 2 hitting on 2s and 6s are sustained. That combat, that sustained there, like, it's just nice. Just really gives you that punch hitting on 2s as well. Just like it. Plus he in combat, 4 attacks sustained, re-rolling wounds. Or nothing. So he's with the 10 paladins. Obviously, they have Sigil. Good bully unit. Like them a lot. Castellan Crows with 10 purifiers, 4 of whom have flamers. Love that unit. Love it. Especially with more and more hordes out there. You can see I've not really got a huge amount of anti-tank in my list. I've got a little bit, and I can just play around a load of tanks. But I've kind of definitely got lots of anti-horde in here. Purifiers are great for that with 4d6 flame shots. Is it 20, 28 storm bolter shots, and then 24 purifying flame shots. Like, that's a lot of DACA. 10 Terminators with Apothecary, Banner, obviously, and Incinerator. Just love the OC-15. It's just me. I could quite easily have reworked this list to not have those and probably getting the 2 units in instead. Just really like that OC-15. I think, your natural expansion objective, having 5 Terminators and 5 Strikes there, sticky it. It's just enough of a deterrent for the opponent, especially if you're an inch away from the wall, so it can't be charged. In UKTC, I think that's going to be really good then. Everything else gets to work elsewhere. I really like that. 2 units of 5 strikes. Now, this was the flex point. I did have 2 units of interceptors. I've now gone for 1 unit of interceptor and 1 purgation unit with 4 incinerators. Just want to give them more of a go. I think they're good. Again, more anti-infantry. If you can get them shooting for 2 or 3 turns in the game, I think that's really tasty. As I said earlier, I like 2 Nemesis Dread Knights, so I've gone for 2 of those with obviously Heavy Side Cannon and Incinerator. I'm not playing them right at the moment. It's just not getting it right. I know I'm not getting it right at the moment. I think I need to use them more as like backfield shooting. And then, as I said, the 10 purifiers. So that is my international team tournament list. I think it can go into most things. I haven't found a bad matchup yet. And kind of like the first defender role is probably what I'm thinking most of the time, but not necessarily all the time. But it can play on a variety of boards as well. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do give me a like. Loving the comments. Okay, really like the comments. We'll always reply to them. Really thoughtful comments. It's been great to connect with the community. If you haven't subscribed, why the devil not become a subscriber? Join a Discord as well. Links in the link tree at the bottom. We've got over 300 members on our Discord now, but not that many Grey Knight guys. So come on, join the fun. And next week, I will, of course, share with you how my 5 games went. And I'll be showing off the trophy that we won when we beat Team England and Ignite, obviously. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Been a pleasure, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.